So rounding decimals using place value, units, and number lines. Looking at the number 37 and 1900, I can decompose this number in this decimal a number of ways. First of all, I can decompose it into its individual units. So 37 and 1900 has 3 tens, 7 ones, 1 tenth, and 9 hundredths. I can also decompose this into ones, tenths, and hundredths by decomposing the tens into ones. 3 tens is equivalent to 30 ones, so 37 and 19 hundredths has 37 ones, 1 tenth, and 9 hundredths. I can further decompose by decomposing my ones into tenths, and 37 ones is equivalent to 370 tenths. So 37 and 19 hundredths has 371 tenths and 9 hundredths. Finally, I can decompose into hundredths, which would be 3,719 hundredths. All right, so now in rounding. First of all, rounding to the tens place. Looking at the different ways that I decompose 37 and 19 hundredths, this top way would be the most useful in in rounding to the tens place, because this actually shows how many tens I have in that number. So 37 and 19 hundredths falls between 3 tens, which is equivalent to the number 30, and visible, all right, and 4 tens, which is equivalent to 40. And I know that because I have 3 tens, and I actually have more than that because I have ones, tenths, and hundredths. So it falls between 3 tens and 4 tens, or it falls between 30 and 40, which makes sense. The number 37 obviously falls between 30 and 40. All right, so I want to put my midpoint on my number line. And the midpoint between 4 tens and 3 tens, or 30 and 40, is 35. And 35 is equivalent to 3 tens plus 5. And this is 5 ones. All right, so then looking at my decomposition, I have 3 tens and 7 ones. 3 tens and 7 ones is going to be more than 3 tens and 5 ones. So 37 and 19 hundredths is going to fall between 3 tenths and 5 ones and 4 tenths, or it's going to fall between 35 and 40. Now this may seem ridiculous and a totally unnecessary step when you could round this without the place value chart, without the number line, but the point of this activity isn't necessarily the rounding, it's our number sense and breaking the numbers down and looking at the place value and having a deeper understanding of place value in units and the equivalency between different units of the same number. Okay, so now moving on to rounding to the nearest ones place. This second way that I decompose 37 and 19 hundredths is going to be the most useful in rounding to the ones place because it has my ones. So I can look at this and I know that I have at least 37 ones. And I have more than that because I've got tenths and hundredths. So 37 and 19 hundredths falls between 37 ones and 38 ones. Or it falls between 37 and 38. So my midpoint would be 37 ones plus 5 tenths. And that would be 37 and 5 tenths. All right, so then looking back to my decomposition, I have 37 and 1 tenth and 9 hundredths. So here's 37 ones and 5 tenths. 1 tenth is less than 5 tenths, so 37 and 19 hundredths is going to fall down here. And as you can see with each step that I do, here I'm showing how deep my understanding of place value and of this number and what it's equal to is. All right, finally looking at the tenths place. I would use this decomposition to help me place 37 and 19 hundredths on a number line showing tenths. So I have 371 tenths at least. I actually have more than that because I've got 9 hundredths. So I have 371 tenths. And it's between 371 tenths and 372 tenths. The midpoint here, excuse me, thought I was going to sneeze, is 371 tenths plus 5. And let me just shift this over. Okay. And this 5 represents 5 hundredths. So looking at my hundredths place, I have 9 hundredths. I have 371 tenths and 9 hundredths. So it's going to place me up here closer to 372 tenths. So in each of these number lines, we can see that our number rounds up to the higher place value. So 37 and 19 hundredths rounds up to 40. In this one, 37 and 19 hundredths rounds down to 37 ones. And finally, 37 and 19 hundredths rounds up to 372 tenths.